Statista.com tells us that 292 people have been killed this year as a result of police violence. Last year, that number was 1,172. Let's hope this is a better year. How many times have you wondered why so little seems to happen after another person is killed over a minor crime, or sometimes no crime at all, by the police? It's all too common that this happens. And there's a reason. We need to end qualified immunity. Rebecca Perius writes in her Nolo.com article that, quote, qualified immunity shields public officials from being sued over civil rights violations, end quote. Qualified immunity keeps you from being able to sue the police when your rights have been violated. Additionally, qualified immunity means that you have no way of questioning an officer's intentions in court. Jay Gibson's May 4th article on the academic blog The Conversation notes that qualified immunity has left more officers free to do as they please. So how does that affect our communities? Of the 292 killed last year, only a small amount were convicted of any wrongdoing. On the Harry A. Wallace Police Crime Database, Matthew Stinson says that only 5% of officers end up convicted of a wrongful death. Ending qualified immunity would restore trust in the police. In a Gallup poll of last year on trust in public institutions, we find that only 48% of Americans trust the police. This could change. The chances of being injured over a minor altercation or even a case of mistaken identity is much higher under qualified immunity. Supporters and officers think qualified immunity protects them from being sued in court, and yes, it does. Being sued is a legitimate worry, but worse, the worry over being killed by the police over a case of mistaken identity or for no reason at all is much worse. So, now that we understand the dangers of qualified immunity, what can we do about it? We can work together. We can work together to keep our families safe. Ending qualified immunity is a solid step towards reducing excessive force on the part of the police. Communicate with victims of police violence. Communicate on social media. Look after your neighbors. And speak with your public officials. We are already seeing how community action helps to change public policies. All right, following a Black Lives Matter protest last year, June 2020, an LA Times article states that the LA City Council voted to reduce public funding by $1.5 million. Minneapolis City Council voted to defund their police department entirely following protests over the death of George Floyd. And in an NBC New York article written by Mike Catalini, he says, quote, that New Jersey has voted to revisit police procedural policy for the first time in 20 years. End quote. Ending qualified immunity helps everyone. A lot of people think that their involvement doesn't matter. A lot of people think that protesting doesn't matter. In an Atlantic.com article, Naeem Moses writes that organized protests do nothing because they either end in altercations with the police or they simply fizzle out. He might be right. He might be right in a lot of cases. However, we've seen this year that public demonstration and community involvement helps to change public policy. Now, you can continue. There are two scenarios that could play out. We can continue to be afraid that a traffic stop might end in one of those cases of bad judgment. Civil rights violations would continue to go unchallenged. And we could continue to be subject to the police. Or, even worse, police can continue to be judge, jury, and executioner against people who haven't been convicted yet of any violence. But see, scenario number 2 is better. We can hold the police accountable. We can hold the police accountable through ending qualified immunity. Speaking out and getting involved and ending qualified immunity will not only give you and your family the ability to do something about civil rights violations, it might even save your life.